The following moments may contain explicit language.
Roger, Charlie, we're ready to rock.
Welcome to the SNLF Dugout Diaries. Today's guest is Bill Clifford, current first-team manager of Worthing United FC, a club steeped in history for various reasons. Formed in 1988 through the merger of Wigmore Athletic and Southdown FC. Bill is known all across the county as a respected manager who has led clubs such as Montpellier Villa, Hurstpier Point in the county leagues, as well as the local leagues such as Portslade Athletic, Grand Parade, and even Inter Brunswick FC in the Brighton leagues. However, nowadays, Bill says he's enjoying his retirement after 40 years in business management, even still playing in over 50s walking football, where he actually became an England national team trialist. But today he is representing a fantastic young squad down at Worthing United who are pushing for playoffs, possibly even better. Bill, welcome to the Dugout. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, very well. Yourself?
Yeah, really good. Firstly, thanks for coming on. You're doing great things down there at the moment on probably limited resources up at Worthing United. You're really, really doing well. A club that I've played for, know all about. Fantastic community, fantastic people behind the scenes. But you're actually putting in, as you have been for the last few years, real results on the pitch. But before we talk about those teams, Bill, talk to me about your early life, where you're from, what you did, and how you got here.
Okay. Well, listen, first up, Mike, thanks for having me on. I really am flattered by being asked to come on, so thank you very much indeed. I'm a reasonably local chap, Sussex lad. I was born in Brighton, raised in Burgess Hill. Was fortunate enough to go to Brighton College, and so that was my education. However, football came along and rather put the mockers on A-level results, and so I didn't go to university. Brighton got to the FA Cup final in 1983, and that was my focus when it should have been A-levels, but there we go. Spent then a half a dozen years up in London trying to seek fame and fortune. Did okay, then went off to Australia for a year, had some fun over there, and then came back to Brighton and thought, well, okay, I better start living properly now. Got a flat in Brighton. About that sort of time, all my old mates had come back to Brighton after uni. And we got a football team going, and that was Inter Brunswick, and that's how I got back into football and playing and organising it at a local level, and that was 30 years ago, and it's sort of been my life ever since, really.
What position did you play, Bill?
I was a centre forward, bit of an old school centre forward. Yeah.
Did you score goals?
Yeah, I wasn't too bad. I mean, bear in mind, I never played at senior football. Most of my life was at junior and intermediate football. I scored some goals for Inter Brunswick and the other teams that I played for. Yeah.
So talk to me, right? You're in the Brighton leagues, and you've now had let's say, the riches of the county league. What's the biggest difference there, bar the standard?
Well, it's interesting you say by the standard, because, of course, that is the key difference, and that is the driver for me as somebody having always been involved in junior football and intermediate football, was to get into senior football, because that's a higher level of football, higher standard of football. But also, of course, you have all that goes with that. So you've got the financial side of it. To run a junior club, put a team in the Brighton League is relatively inexpensive, and you get your match day subs from the players, and that sort of runs itself type of thing. But now, of course, you don't get match day subs in the county league, or combination league, as we should call it, I guess. And you have to rely on sponsorship, and also, match day receipts, and behind the bar, and the tea hut, and the da 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 da. So all the infrastructure that goes on around it all is of course very different.
So I'm looking at what the listeners won't know is you provided me some information on yourself, and you've got one of the most comprehensive CVs regarding local, intermediate, and senior football around. I'm looking at your first job, Inter Brunswick, which you say there. You're the founder, the chairman, the secretary, the treasurer, the manager, and it looks like you played as well. Is there anything you didn't do at that club?
No. I mean, we started off playing down at the lawns in Hove on a Saturday afternoon for fun. As I say, all the old mates getting back together again. And then mates of mates and so on and so forth. And then we thought, well, this is getting a bit bigger than we started off with. Let's put a team together. And of course, everybody looked at each other and said, well, who's going to organise it? And I did. With one or two of the lads helping out. My mate Jamie was the treasurer. And at that time, though, I think that was it. I think I did everything else. But it was great fun, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a labour of love, as it has been ever since. Incidentally, we all do a lot of work in these positions, but we all do it because we love it.
So you then moved on to Grand Parade FC, again in the Brighton Hove League. You're now manager. That's what you're doing. How are you taking that transition from being a player to then being a manager?
Well, it wasn't really too much of a big transition because, as you mentioned there, I'd been the manager at times during Inter Brunswick period. So, and also because you're a chairman and a secretary and an organizer, there's a lot of man management involved in that anyway. And so it wasn't too big a jump. It was a natural progression for me, really. When I stopped playing, I don't know about you, but on a Saturday night after a football match, I loved the fact that I cared about the result. So I loved the fact that I could really celebrate when we won, and I almost loved the fact that I hated it when we lost, because, as a cliche goes, you've got to lose to appreciate the winning. And when I stopped playing for a very short period of time, I really missed that Saturday night feeling of caring about a result. And so the natural fix to that was to manage a team.
I love that. So then you've done your thing at Grand Parade and you've moved on. You're now on to Port Slade Athletic. I see as well, one thing I do remember, you were also one of the guys that run the Brighton League representative side. I think at the time I was in the West Sussex side, so I do remember. How did that come about? How did you get asked to do that?
Yeah, Dave Downs, who you may or may not know, was a big player in the Brighton League back in the day, and similar sort of age to myself, I think. Hope I'm not doing one of us down there, but he ran the Brighton League reps team when I was the manager at Port Slade Athletic. So I knew him because he used to talk to me about players that were coming that perhaps should be involved and so on and so forth. And then I think one day he needed some help on a match day, so I helped.
So Bill, Dave Dale's got you in to help out on the occasion. Is this now a chance to see more players from a wider spectrum for yourself now? Are you in contact with more higher quality players?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look at it from that way around, actually, because once I'd helped out once or twice, I think it was in the final season, Dave phoned me pre-season and said, look, will you co-manage it with me? And my motivation really was, it was more football. There's more opportunity to get more games and more fun, because I'd been doing it with Port Slade Athletic for a number of years, I knew who all the best players were in all the other teams in the Brighton Prem. So I was able, and I think he knew that. So between the pair of us, we were able to, swap notes as to who we thought were, should be in the squad, and it ran quite well,
On the other side to that, you started having good success with Port Slade Athletic. The 06-07 season, you're promoted back to the Premier Division, runners-up from Div 1. You reached the semi-final of the President's Cup the year later. A year after that, you won the Brighton Hove District Six-a-side Cup. A year after that, you runners-up in the College Cup. And then finally, the year after that, you got the club's highest total in the Premier Division for 25 years, and you won the College Cup. I'm seeing steady progression there. Did you keep the same kind of squad? Were you adding new players?
Yeah.
Were you building the foundations for success at an early age?
You use the phrase there, steady progression, and that's really my mantra, and has been that throughout. I've never gone into a job and thought, right, okay, bang, we've got to win this, or we're going to. Don't work like that. Well, it doesn't for me anyway. It's about getting the ground, the foundations in place, and wherever I've changed clubs, and there haven't been that many changes really, but over a long period of time. But whenever I have, it's been about getting the building blocks in place first. Getting the right squad. it's a bit of a cliche game, but, I have a no idiots policy. So, you might need to lose one or two players and you might need to get a few in. And so very often the first season or two is about just getting everything right. And then you kick on from there. And you then hope to build a squad that are faithful to each other. And you don't then get very much of a turnover of player. Plus, also, you get more of a buy-in as to how you want things to be done.
Did you get to the point there? You just obviously had the highest points total for Port Said Athletic, 25 years. Did you get to a point there where you thought, maybe it's time I've took this club as far as I can? Because then I see you moved into actual county league football. Was that what you were thinking at the time?
Yeah. I mean, had Port Said Athletic been able to get a ground that was, county league ready, or, fitted the ground grading, then I would have stayed. There wasn't an issue with Port Said Athletic, but I remember us trying a lot to try and find a location and stuff. But it's impossible, but it was there anyway, to find a ground. And so, my desire was to get into county football. And an opportunity came up. Where did I go next? I'm just looking at my own notes.
Hurstfield Point.
So, an opportunity came up at Hurstfield Point, that's right, where they were looking for a manager who were County 3 at the time, in old money, combination 2. And I thought, well, it's only up the road. I live in Hove. It was a big decision for me because, as I say, I'd done 5 years, 6 years at Port Said Athletic. We'd done well. I loved the team, loved the players, loved the group, loved the committee. But it was an itch that I needed to scratch, in terms of could I do this at county football? So, I went there.
So you've made that transition, made it to senior football. It's a beautiful club down there at Hurstfield Point. Allegedly still got some great food that they serve up nowadays as well, in a lovely picturesque setting. How did you approach that from saying, with no disrespect, you moved from park football to county football? What changes did you have to make yourself as a manager to build on the foundations for future success?
It's interesting because when I first went there, I remember people on the committee there saying, this is a different ball game, Bill. You've got to do things slightly differently. Blah, blah, blah. And actually, I didn't see it that way. I thought I had a pretty decent blueprint of how I thought I should run things. And I thought, well, no, I need to stay true to myself. I need to stay true to how I think things should be done, which is pretty much what I've done at Port Said Athletic. No idiot policy, da 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 da. And that actually caused a few frictions initially, because I don't think people bought into the fact that I could replicate what I'd done with a park side in county football. But as it turned out, I could, it worked out well.
Well, it seems to have worked out well because in 2013-14 season, you won the Sussex Intermediate Cup, which was the first time in the club's 128-year history. I mean, that's a phenomenal achievement. How did you feel?
Yeah.
That must have been
very proud.
One of your best early management successes.
Without doubt. And, to this day, we actually have a group chat on WhatsApp, the class of 2014. We're so 10 years on from that. So after 5 years, we all went out for a meal and had some fun. And then we were going to do it again last year, but one reason or another, it didn't quite happen. But we'll do something this year, I think, instead. So that group and that achievement, yeah, absolutely. That I can't remember, but there's something ridiculous like 100 and something other clubs enter that competition. On my mantelpiece in the lounge, I've got a picture of us lifting the trophy, and I've got the write up from the local newspaper about it all framed. Because absolutely love that. It was fantastic.
And there's nothing I want to touch on just in one of your achievements at Hurstfield Point. Something that probably doesn't get talked about enough these days. You won the Division 3 sportsmanship for the 3rd year running. Now, we don't normally talk about that on the podcast and things like that, but I think it's something we should, because I can be vocal in games and I can push it. But that shows to me that you had that team at the time playing with respect, playing together for each other, playing for the good of the game to win that 3 years running. Is that how it went?
Yeah. Another proud achievement actually, and something that's been a constant. I do like good discipline on and off the pitch. That doesn't always happen, but yeah, no, it is something that I like. The current team are doing well in the current respect tables as well, and that I was particularly pleased actually because the league recognised it. So not only did they give us the team award each of those 3 years, I then personally was nominated for a national award by the league to the FA. For what I'd done. So I was really pleased with that. And that was really nice of the league to really.
So then that took you on to further progression within your career. You then, between 2014 and 2017, you managed Montpellier Villa. You were the first team manager there. You reached the semi-final of the Mid-Sussex Senior Cup. You also coached their ladies team as well. That's another string to your bow, I say.
Yeah. The ladies team there, who now are going great guns, by the way, and still going. Charlotte, who started the team off and was the captain at the time, and now runs it. Done a fantastic job there, and I still follow them on social media. But yeah, just for that short period, they not only are they doing well then, they started really well. And they got to a cup final, and I can't remember whether it was me saying, "You need me to help you." Maybe not. I'm hoping it was the other way around and they asked me, but there we go. But yeah, I got involved in the last 6 weeks in the run up to that. We organised some friendlies, we organised some coaching sessions, and along with my coach at the time, it wasn't just me and my coach Richard at the time. We helped prepare them, and it was great fun. Great fun. We didn't win the final, but it was against a team that were miles ahead of everybody else in the league, and we got.
I'm starting to see some consistencies here with your managerial career, because whilst you were at Montpellier Villa, you also won the SCFL Respect and Discipline Award, not just for your division, for all divisions. Again, you must be setting a way of thinking, a mindset in your team to play the right way, but at the end of the day, to be able to have respect for the opponents, supporters, and the clubs.
Yeah, I mean, it's born out of the will to win, really, because, as I say to the players, you've got much more chance of winning a game of football if you've got 11 players on the pitch, So for starters, we've got a pretty good touching wood and everything around me, a pretty good record in that respect. We don't get many reds, and that gives you half a chance, doesn't it? Similarly with Simmons, it's daft, and so it's born out of that, really. But it's just common sense to me that why would you, ruin the chance of winning a football match by being stupid? So that's really what it's born out of. But yeah, again, you've got to surround yourself with the right people as well. Some people would never get that message, but if people are willing to accept that and understand that, then great.
So let's move on now to why you're here. You're obviously flying high at the moment. You're the current Worthing United FC manager, a team full of fantastic, a young side, fantastic youngsters in there. But as you come into Worthing United, first off in 2018, you started managing the under-21s / reserve side, I assume, is that?
It was 20. It's what's now the 23s. The league used to call it the 21s.
Yeah. You then took the strange direction that you've gone from 21s, 23s manager to chairman. How did that happen?
Well, here's the thing. So the reason I went to Worthing United from Montpellier Villa is because, a bit like the situation with Portside Athletic, Portside Athletic couldn't get into county football. Montpellier Villa at the time were playing at Sussex University and couldn't get into senior football. And they were looking for grounds and so on. This is all before the ground share at Culver Road came up. And I thought, I want to get into senior football now. And so an opportunity came up to manage the 21s there. And I thought, well, at least that's a foot in the door. And he said, then I'm in a senior football club. And incidentally, the reason why I was particularly attracted, and you and I were talking about this briefly off air before we started, was how well they dealt with the Shoreham disaster. You know, I knew about Worthing United before because
I
Nigel
want to touch on
Geary
that. I want to touch on that in a minute, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Nigel Geary had done a great job getting them promoted to the Prem a year or two before that. And I knew Nigel quite well because he used to play for me at Hursley Point. And so they were on my radar. And again, they lived there sort of East Worthing. I live in Hove, so it's not too much of a distance. And I thought, well, that might be a club that worth getting into. And this opportunity came up to do the 21s. And so I foot in the door. Now, unfortunately, the first team got relegated that season. So I went thinking, I might have half a chance here of taking over the first team. But before that all came to pass, the chairman, Steve Taylor,
I know, Steve.
he was going to pack it in. And Mark Sanderson, the secretary, said to me, they both said to me, look, maybe because I was a bit older than everybody else, fancy taking over as chairman? My immediate reaction was, no, thanks, I'm a manager. But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, hang on a second, I've been a manager for quite a while, I've enjoyed it. Maybe that's the next natural progression, rather than managing a team, manage a club. So again, gave it a lot of thought, and that excites me. I'm up for that.
So it's a club I know well. Now, I know over the years at the club, there's always been some issues with the land, places like that. The farmers that own the land around. You've got Saywell's next to you, which I believe Mr. Saywell's been a fantastic supporter of the club over the years and everything like that. Every few years, the land thing for Worthing United comes up. Is it something that you could say that the future's going to be there over the next 5-10 years as a club?
I don't know, is the short answer. You're right. This has been an ongoing conversation for years, before my time even. And it's still ongoing. The current state of play is that there are 2 plots of land up for discussion. One is where the football club is, the pitch, and one is just to the west of that where there's some fields. Where the fields are is, in modern terms, called phase 1, and the pitch is phase 2. And they can't build. This is all about building houses. And as it stands at the moment, or certainly at the last meeting I went to, which was a few months ago, they can't build on the pitch without finding a new home for us. Sport England have a say in this, and they say, look, you can't move a football club without. Now, if they can find a place to move us, they'd probably build houses on it. So, whether that happens or not, that we hope is some way off. We hope that is some way off. Phase 1, the bit to the west of us, that may well happen sooner or later, but we haven't got a date on that, and I don't think it's had the final go-ahead yet.
I mean, that's fantastic to hear, because a club with the history of Worthing United already has a following community. Thousands of lads and women have played there. It means that there is going to be a future for Worthing United, whether they are still behind Lions Farm or whether that's a new destination in the future.
Yeah. I guess one rider to all of that I've just said is, of course, we've got a new government, and one of the things they've said, of course, is that they want to make house building easier and do away with some of the concerns, or I'm not sure how to phrase this properly, but the concerns that perhaps neighbours have or other parties have about having houses built there. So maybe that doesn't work in our favour, but let's see.
Okay. Now, obviously, I can't talk to you about Worthing United without mentioning a huge tragedy that happened, the Shoreham show. I was speaking to Lawrence Edwards, AFC Vardinians, just earlier today, actually, and he was one of the guys that was in one of the cars previously. I don't want to get your views on it so much, because it's a subject. But what I wanted to say, the way Worthing United handled that situation with the players, the committee, the parents, the wider community, and the national press as well, I thought was fantastic. Mark Sanderson at the time, I've seen the documentary as well, was obviously hit left, right and centre by media outlets wanting to talk about it. You lost 2 fantastic players, in the club, which obviously tragedies like that you'd never ever expect to happen. But I wanted to say, to pass on what everyone else thought was an exemplary hand of that situation in the most disastrous terms possible. Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, as you say, it was actually the year before I joined, but I, like you, was similarly impressed. I think, that was, again, one of the reasons that attracted me to the club. And I think, they couldn't have done it any better, could they? The way they dealt with the media, it was all from the hearts, the scarves on the side of the fence afterwards, the match that they put on. The support we had got from Brighton and Hove Albion was fantastic because, of course, one of the lads worked at Lancing at the academy, the training ground there. Yeah, I mean, and it still is a big part of the club. Anybody that goes to our clubhouse will see the pictures of the two lads on the wall. Their names, their initials are on our shirts every season. The parents of both lads and more family members come to games regularly. They're invited every year and usually come to our end of season awards night. We have an annual charity game with Marlow. Matt Grimstone was involved with them as well every pre-season, which raises money for the Brighton and Hove Albion Foundation. So it's still a very big part of the club. And of course, our main stand is now the Matt and Jacob stand. So yeah, part of the club.
Yes, thank you for delving into that, Spill. And obviously, after speaking to one of the players that was in that today, I understand the tragedy that was still going, but those boys will never be forgotten. Which for Worthing United doing that is fantastic. However, on a lighter note now, I want to just dive into your team a bit. You got a young squad down there, Bill, but you got some fantastic young players. What is the target for this season? I mean, I'm looking at some of your players that I know. You've got some great players down there. You've got your Danny Kingstons, your Taylor Hardits, Appletons, people like that, Hills. What's the target this season, Bill? Because you're in the box seat at the moment to do well.
Well, as you may know, last season we finished fifth and reached the playoffs. Not so close. We had a thrilling 3-3 draw at Wick in the semi-final. They equalised in extra time to take it to penalties.
Oh, no.
In injury time, and then of course we had a penalty to win it, which wasn't to be either. So we did say after that game that we wanted to use that feeling of hurt, as it did, obviously, to drive us on this season. And so our objective is to get promoted this season. Now, there'll be a half a dozen or a dozen clubs with that same objective, and only 2 can go up. So it remains to be seen. But certainly, whether we go up as champions or winning the playoffs, that's what we're looking to achieve. But it's going to be tough, but we'll give it a good go.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be there or thereabouts. But the thing that does strike me about the team is it is young. So whatever you do this season, you're certainly going to be doing more, if not better, next season, depending on which league you're going to be in. But it's,
and you're right. It is a long club. So just in preparation for chatting to you, because I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was the squad. I was just looking at it, and here's a couple of things for you that actually I hadn't stopped and thought about really until I looked at it. We've of a squad of 20 that I'll consider my first team squad. 12 have come through from the under-18s.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Sorry, 12 of 20. There's only 8 players that we brought in. And of that 20, only 2 are over 25.
Wow.
So you say about a younger squad, that is a young squad, isn't it? So there's pros and cons. That they're young, they're fit, they're keen to learn. I think most of the time, and they're good, honest lads. Sometimes perhaps a little bit of experience goes, is missing, but you can't have everything.
Well, just to end up, Bill, because you've been fantastic. I mean, I've got 2 minutes worth of rapid questions I want to fire at you. That's okay.
Right, yeah.
Here we go. What's the biggest challenge of managing Worthing United?
football. It's the biggest challenge of being a manager. Full stop. It doesn't matter where you're at.
Okay. Which up and coming players should fans keep an eye on?
Well, you mentioned Daddy Kingston. He's going to go on to be a great player, and he'll play at a much higher level for sure. He needs to work on his bit without the ball, but or winning it back, shall we say? But he's got some real talent there, that lad. Yeah.
How do you motivate the team after a tough loss?
Just with honesty. We are very much all in it together. We don't. No individual takes the blame, and we just look at it with honesty and say, what can we do better? What do we need to do different next time?
Who's been your biggest influence in football?
Maybe my dad. Actually, he wasn't a player, but he supported me, knowing that I love football, and took me to my first game and all of that sort of stuff. And then back in the day when we didn't have mobiles or whatever, I'd get on the landline, which cost money to organise football matches and stuff. So yeah.
Who's the biggest character in the Worthing United squad?
We got a few, but I guess you probably the immediate one that comes to mind is Dan Hills. Whenever he's in the dugout, I have to go and tell him to warm up because I can't be doing with him.
If you weren't there, who's the one player you would like to manage the squad, and who's the one player you would never have managed the squad?
Frank Dagley is my coach, as you probably know, and he's
a good guy. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, although he's been injured for a long term, he is registered as a player, but whether he actually gets back to playing or not remains to be seen. So yeah, he would be the natural answer to that question. And very much, by the way, that our success as it is at Worthing United is a joint effort with me and him. I ought to flag that immediately, that we're very much a team, me and him.
And who's the one person you wouldn't put in charge then for the day?
Right, Dan Hills.
Fantastic. And that's it from me, Bill. You've been fantastic coming on. You're obviously doing great things down there at the moment. I look forward. I think our boys have got you in 5 days' time over at Arundel at the Lions Farm there. So it'd be wonderful to see you in person. Anything you've got to say for anyone listening out there? And how can they get hold of you if there's any future sponsorships or anything like that? They need to get hold of you. How can they get hold of you?
Yeah, I'm listed in the handbook, the SFL handbook. There's our club website. I'm easy to find. Facebook, Twitter. Listen, I just want to say, just in terms of Worthing United, a huge thanks to everybody that helps run that club. Mark, obviously, with all the work that he does as secretary, chairman, and groundsman. The committee and their support they give.
Well, Bill, thanks for coming to the dugout. I wish you, Worthing United FC, all the players, supporters, and committee a very happy Christmas, and I'm sure you'll be there or thereabouts in the coming season. Bill Clifford, thanks for coming in the dugout.